September 18th, 2018, and this is the City of Louisville Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and we will call to order. We do have a quorum present. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the September 4th meeting. Commissioners, do I have a motion or any comments?
Motion to approve it.
Okay, motion by Jim.
Second.
Second by Karen. All those in favor signify aye. Aye. Motion carries. Okay, agenda item 3 is for public hearings for zoning and special use permits. We have 2 items on the agenda tonight. The first is item A for public hearing for consideration of a zone change request from single-family residential district to mixed-use district on approximately 1.142 acres out of the John W. King Survey, abstract number 696, located on the west side of Mill Street, north of West College Street, and south of Stewart Street, as requested by Randy Rivera, GNA Consultants, on behalf of Henry Romani, TSMJV LLC, the property owner.
Good evening, Commissioners. This is a zoning change to mixed-use zoning district. That district does require a concept plan that is binding, but it is just a concept plan, so it's not quite even to the level of detail that you might get with a plan development zoning change, but it gives you the concept for what the applicant would like to do with the property. In this case, the applicant is proposing 2 buildings, the larger of which would be Phase 1. This would be a 5-story structure that is along Mill Street. The first floor would be retail and restaurant along Mill Street and garage parking. The upper floors would be residential condo ownership units. The 4th to 5th floors are connected units, so that's 1 unit, and the 5th floor is set back to sort of reduce the bulk and appearance of the building. In addition, there is a second building that is on the opposite side of the fire lane that is 2 stories and would contain 3 units and would be designed to resemble townhomes. The architecture on the building is designed to resemble an old warehouse. They've done this to try to fit in with the old town design scheme and the turn-of-the-century architecture. The townhouse building is craftsman influenced in terms of its architectural style. The applicant is providing all of the required parking for the residential units on site, as well as some guest parking in the rear. Parking for the commercial uses would need to be obtained through provided through obtaining a shared parking agreement with either the church across the street or the city to the south. They also are showing on their concept plan reverse angled parking along Mill Street. In order to provide this parking, they will need to complete a traffic impact analysis and build it per those recommendations. Should the applicant not be able to obtain the shared parking agreement, or if the TIA comes back where they can't do the on-street parking, then they would need to go back and revise their concept plan, which would be public hearings. If anything else substantial changed on the concept plan, they would also need to come back before the P&Z and Council in a public hearing setting to amend that concept plan. They will be requesting several variances, including pavement over a water line, and differences in terms of spacing and garage spacing, and also in terms of fencing. None of these variances would be required if the development were located within Old Town. And so staff is in support of those. This is just 1 block north of College. This is on the north side of College Street, so it's the adjacent block to Old Town. So the thought is that this would tie into Old Town and provide a focal point as you enter Old Town from the north along Mill Street, and hopefully help spur additional redevelopment of properties along Mill Street. So we do find that it is in compliance with our plans, reflecting Old Town, including the Old Town redevelopment plan. And then also when we did our small area plan for Old Town North, we talked about that tie-in to Old Town and doing a design district on the north side of College Street. And so that does, in terms of design, fit into the type of architecture that we've seen in the area and in Old Town. So staff is here if you have any questions, and the applicant is here as well, and I'm sure they'd like to present the project to you.
I had a quick question about the parking on Mill Street. Is that sort of in line with what we're looking at for the Mill Street improvements?
It is, yes. We are doing reverse angle parking along Mill Street farther to the south. So this would kind of continue that, but it would be farther north. Engineering does have some concerns, though, about traffic safety and traffic counts, and that's why a traffic impact analysis would be required with their engineering site plan. So this is the concept plan with the zoning. The next step would be to do a full engineering site plan with the TIA and with the shared parking agreement to make sure that we've looked at all of those details, as well as drainage, which I know is another concern, especially as they have a level of parking that is below grade.
Okay, and so if the TIA came back that was not a preferred parking, then that part could be modified?
It could be. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Commissioners, does anybody else have any questions for staff?
Do I understand that they're not rental units?
Correct, yes. They're proposing these to be condo ownership units. They're really about 1,600 square feet or so. There is proposed to be one caretaker unit for the building, and then another unit that would be an accessory unit that could be used by guests, visiting guests as they're staying. So it wouldn't be an apartment unit per se, but a guest suite for owners in the condo complex. It would be the condo association. Okay. Mm-hmm. We don't have any deed restrictions proposed with this zoning change, but it is part of their concept plan that it's an accessory unit. Mm-hmm. So that would be the second step of enforcement. It would be a violation of the zoning to rent it out as a long-term apartment. Mm-hmm.
Any further questions for staff? If not, is the applicant wishing to give a presentation before we open the public hearing?
Good evening, Chairwoman and Commissioners. I don't have a PowerPoint, but I do just want to talk briefly. Randy Rivera, planner for G&A McAdams here in Louisville. I'm representing Henry Romani and Benny Jafari. They're here, one of them is here tonight. Our client is really plugged into Old Town area and has created a lot of exciting residential opportunities for new people to come into Old Town and live, and from single families to townhomes. And this is he's had tremendous success with all of those projects, and it seems like we're getting closer and closer and closer to Old Town. And so this is a condo project, so these will be owner occupied. And the condo association would be required to have CC&Rs filed at Denton County in order to put the conditions on the property that run with the association, that they understand what they're buying into. It's like an HOA, but for a condo association. And again, these are the townhomes, or the townhome-like units on the west side are meant to transition to kind of the single-family look of the existing neighborhood. But Michelle did a great job covering all the other points. If that parking doesn't work out, the TIA comes back and says that it doesn't meet because of the speed limit or whatever it is, then we would have to come back before y'all with a revised concept plan and rework the building, the programming of the building, the unit count, the square footage for the retail and restaurant on the bottom floor. To kind of take that stuff out. And again, with the shared parking agreement, if that doesn't work out, we have to change the plan. So this is kind of getting us started on moving forward with with engineering site plan and all those other agreements that are going to be required. So we're here tonight. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
So the 5 stories, what is the one on top? Is that leasable space? What is that?
On the 5th floor?
Yeah, where it's kind of recessed back. What is that?
So that is the upper level of the unit below it. So it's almost like they're the loft units. We call them penthouses. So it's a unit that has stairs in it. So the entry to the unit is actually on the 4th floor from the internal hallway. But once you get into the unit, you can go upstairs into that upper level on the 5th story.
And so the 5 stories is not including the parking, because that's
correct. Yeah.
Okay.
That's correct.
And then so there's retail on the bottom, Is there office on top of that, or is it just retail and then residential above?
Retail, restaurant, and then residential above that.
Okay,
Correct. There's not office on the second story.
okay.
Explain the parking. I understand it's basically on the first floor, but it's sort of covered, it's sort of underground. I don't know what's going on.
Okay, well, I will do my best to explain it without a visual, but the property has a slope to it. So that kind of allows us to play with the slope and have a lower basement level where it's just 2-car garages. And there's one entry in, one entry out, and it's 2-car garages. And then that's what we call below grade, because we are cutting into the hill to do that. And then the level above that, you're coming in from Stewart and College Street. It's at grade. You're coming in from those streets. And it's more garages, and then I think 9 surface parking spaces. So there's a total of 53 garages provided in 2 levels. And then there's some surface parking on the at grade level. But so the below grade has maybe 30-ish or so garages, 2-car garages.
You were calling them garages, does that mean the owner has a space and it locks for them? You're actually closing in?
The garages, I'm not sure if the garages themselves are locked. I would think they probably would be, or a keypad or something. But they have to leave the garage, walk to a common area, go up the elevator or the stairs to their unit. So the garages aren't connected directly to the units either.
But they'll be parking next to their neighbor's car, or will they have their own?
Oh, separate garages, like a real garage. Yes, ma'am.
So each residential unit would have its own designated garage?
Correct. That's correct.
Okay. Any further questions for the applicant before we open public hearing?
So the shared parking's gotta be for retail,
Correct. The retail restaurant at the bottom level.
so what's gonna happen when the churches are
Well, the church and the city use, it's great that they're our neighbors to this property because it's off-peak. The retail and restaurant space peaks at the PM hour, and typically there's nobody in the city hall parking lot unless there's a public meeting like this one. And then the church is only, really that parking lot is only full, during Sundays or maybe Wednesdays. But we would work through the number of spaces in the shared parking agreement with the church to make sure they're comfortable with allowing us to do that.
So where was the, how did you arrive at the price?
I'm sorry, what was that?
How did you arrive at the price point?
At the price points. Well, we've had a lot of success, our client has, with the owner, fee simple residential that he's developed in Old Town. The 5 townhomes right here, they're going for $300. They're all sold out, and he's anxiously waiting to get started on the rest of them. South Village, he's got good sales going on there. People are waiting to get some units. And then Legacy Point. So he's really in touch with what the market of Old Town, what people are willing to pay to be here. And so the price point we have for the unit breakdown is that it would start at $500,000 for a penthouse unit, and then it would be $295,000 or so for a 2-bedroom unit, and then $399,000 for a 3-bedroom unit. I think I said that right. That is correct. This is really true urban living that we're introducing into Old Town. So I think we'll get a lot of excitement out of it.
I did just want to chime in. I actually go to that church, so
Okay.
I believe they already do have. There's some shared parking going on there already with those spaces. So I don't know if you've talked to the church or not, but I just wanted you to be aware. They have a neighbor that does business during the day that parks there, so there's people parking
Okay.
there during the day.
Okay. I'm
so
glad that you
just
told
so
me
you know.
that. We have reached out. I think we've been unsuccessful in getting in touch with each other. I think we're still playing phone tag, our client, and I'm not sure who he's contacting over there, but I may try to call him myself or something if I can.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. If we have no further comments or questions for now, we will go ahead and open the public hearing for this agenda item, item 3A. Anyone wishing to speak may come forward. There should be a piece of paper up there where you can sign in And for the record, please just state your name.
I've never done this. My name is Lisa McCoy. I live on Stewart. I just have a few concerns. We have grandchildren, babies outside. What is this going to do for them playing in our yards with 2 roadways going through? People driving in and out. I mean, we already have problems, people driving like crazy because they cut through instead of turning down College, of driving 25, 35 miles an hour down our street. I just want to know what the concern, I mean, how is this going to affect our, my nephew lives 2 doors down, he's 2. I just don't know how this building, I mean, putting the building there does not bother me. It's the concern of the children playing around with all these cars. She says that the parking out front, it's not going to affect us, but there's a street that goes all the way through that's going to come right out by our houses. And if somebody's whipping through and driving like they are now, how is that going to affect us, our children getting hit? And that's our concern. Plus, it's going to be so huge, it's going to cover y'all's building from our driveway. I mean, y'all are the biggest building, and that's the eyesore for Louisville, and this thing's like going to be the same size as this. So, I mean, that's just our concern, though, it's, mainly the kids.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't know, do I need to sign this?
Yes, please.
I don't know how that's going to apply to anything.
What we can do right now is we can just take comment, and then we will, once we close the public hearing, we will give the applicant an opportunity to come back up and address some of those concerns.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if they can make it to where it's safe for our kids, then I have no problem with this building. I know Louisville's trying to grow, but it needs to be on the safety of our children also. And I mean, it's not far from a school. I see kids walking from College Street all the time, going across Mill Street to go home. I just don't want anybody getting hit. And I've seen a lot of people getting hit at the corner of Mill and College already. So that's just my concern.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
Hi, my name is Eva Claire, and just curious if this project goes through, what kind of time frame from start to finish are we looking at construction-wise? Because mainly the traffic that's going to go through there with all the mess going on, I mean, we just kind of need to know what we're looking at. And I'm assuming as far as property values, this is only going to help our property values, because I also live on this block. So just kind of trying to see where we stand is, do we want to stay there as a permanent resident, or is this the time we need to start trying to figure things out and looking someplace else?
Okay. And I don't know if maybe staff wants to respond as far as the timing goes on some of these things.
I would, as far as the construction timing goes, I would let the applicant answer that one.
But I mean, as far as from where we are right now.
From where we are right now? Mm-hmm.
Right, with
So-
just getting zoning right now.
Correct. So they're working on their zoning right now, and this has been scheduled for a public hearing with the City Council on October 1st. After that, they would need to submit their engineering site plans for staff for review and plat the property. That generally takes anywhere from 3 to 6 months, just depending on how many revisions there are. And then they would also do a building permit. So it would probably be about 6 months until any construction would occur or start on the property.
Okay. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
Hi, my name is Charlie McCoy. I live on 121 Stewart. My concerns are Stewart Street is still a one-lane blacktop road with gutters. We don't even have drainage that comes through there. Now, if we concrete all of that, where is all that water going to run to? I can tell you it's going to run beside my house and my neighbor's house, because when the water gets high, it floods our property. Now, what concerns me, it's going to be worse And then we have everybody cutting through Stewart Street to go around, especially when they have something at the city downtown. Everybody uses our street to cut through. And it concerns me, it's a one-lane road. What its provisions in there to either upgrade Stewart Street, or we gonna leave it one lane? That's my concerns.
Okay,
Because 2 trucks cannot pass on Stewart Street. You either have to pull in somebody's driveway or pull off in the ditch. That's how small Stewart Street is. It's one of the few streets in Louisville that still has blacktop. So that's my concerns.
okay, did you sign in on there should be a sheet, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
I'd like to pass out an email that we received earlier today from a relative of Mrs. Billy Boyd Smith, who lives at 133 West College. And there were concerns about property values and how this would fit into the existing neighborhood. So I'll pass this out to the commissioners.
Okay, and if there's anyone else wishing to speak on this item, please come forward. Otherwise, we'll close the public hearing. So having no one come forward, we will close the public hearing on this item. And so if the applicant would like to respond to any of the comments that have been,
I would be glad to respond. All right. I think I wrote everything down. Okay, so the duration of the construction, Michelle talked about 6 more months through permitting and all this. And then the timing for building the 5-story building would be 18 months. So that's how long it would be under construction. And then, yes, it will, I believe it will increase the property values. The project value is $20 million. So I think that alone would bring up the values in Old Town. The safety of the kids on Stewart and, I understand Stewart is very narrow and there's no sidewalks, for the kids to be able to walk down, and the proximity to College Street Elementary and, which is good. We want pedestrians in Old Town. This is what we want. We are providing for sidewalks on the north and the east and the south side. So any along our perimeter streets, along Stewart, along Mill, and along College, we are providing for sidewalks to get pedestrians off the street to be able to walk safely around the property, around the project. So I think that will help. The street, I think that she was alluding to, that cuts through is a 24-foot fire lane, and it's really a driveway for residents to access to get into their garages. Because on that fire lane, there are 7 garages. So, and then there's a surface parking lot. And it's 24 feet wide. So I think because of then the building's right on the edge of that 24 foot. So I think just the nature of that, the closeness of the garages to the fire lane, people are going to be having to drive slower anyway because they're trying to get in and out of their garage. Or it's not a raceway because there are things along there that are going to slow people down. Let's see, the other question, drainage, we provided a concept utility plan that the engineers of the city did review. We are providing a subgrade drainage system. Everything's going to drain into the ground floor, obviously, into an inlet and go into a pipe, and then be tied into the. Let's see. I have the utility plan. Just a second. There's an existing grate inlet on Stewart Street that we're tying our drainage into. And this has been signed off by the city engineers. This is a concept utility plan, so they're okay with our drainage proposal. And then I think the other one was upgrading Stewart Street. I'm not aware if the city is proposing to upgrade that. Michelle, do you have any?
I'm not aware of any immediate plans on Stewart Street, as we are working on College Street, but we would require some kind of improvement or street escrow, likely construction of the improvement based on the scale of the building. So it just depends, but there will either be an escrow for those improvements or making the improvements by the applicant.
Okay, so I think that was all the questions.
Okay. Thank you. So I guess, commissioners, we can comment at this time. I wanted to say that, I live on College Street, and so I'm aware of Stewart Street. It is a teeny tiny little street, and so I do agree with some of the concerns about the traffic on that street. There is, well, the city may be able to, to resurface that and upgrade the street a little bit. I don't believe there's, at least when you drive through there, it doesn't look like there's really any room for any widening of that street. And so I guess my question to staff would be, would it be helpful for us to be able to use that entrance off of Stewart either as an entrance or exit only, and restrict, the direction in which the traffic can come through there, which may help with some of the traffic. Even if maybe that's perhaps something that is evaluated during the TIA process, which I assume would probably be part of that TIA anyway, just so we could get a better understanding of what, how much traffic do we really anticipate coming through there for this, because I know there's only 7 garages, but there's also some surface parking as well, which would be turnover parking. And so I don't know, is there any way that we could request that be part of it, and that Stewart Street be evaluated as part of that TIA?
I would request, I think you could request that Stewart Street be evaluated as part of the TIA. I'm not sure what the solution is without the TIA.
Right.
Because as you mentioned, there's the 9 guest parking spaces and then 7 units that would actually be off the 24-foot fire lane. The units that have the underground parking would access from Stewart Street, but it's much closer up towards Mill Street. So the amount of them coming through the neighborhood is probably fairly minimal because it's just such a short distance. But we could request that be looked at with the TIA.
Okay. Does that need to be, when we vote, does that need to be any?
I would include it in your motion.
Okay. Commissioners, is there any other discussion that we want to have on this item?
There will be an HOA and an on-site manager, am I correct?
On-site. Let me clarify. There will be, yes, an HOA, for lack of a better term, I guess, on that one. And then the HOA has bylaws on how, who's the voting members and all this and who's on the board. But on site will be utility personnel that live in the kind of the caretakers area. Yeah, I guess you could say that, but we don't want to call a manager because they're there to take care of the grounds, take care of everything, but not necessarily manage. But let the owners know what's going on. Okay. You're welcome.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, I will entertain a motion for this item.
Motion to approve with TIA comment?
With the stipulation on the TIA. Okay, so motion by William,
Second.
second by Jem. All those in favor signify aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners, and I just want to state for the audience here and everyone viewing that a second public hearing will be held with the City Council on October 1st, and that second public hearing will have the final decision by Council.
Okay, moving on to item 3B, a public hearing for consideration of a zone change request from light industrial district to mixed use district on approximately 3.695 acres, legally described as Lot 1, Block C, High Point at Timber Creek Addition, and located on the northwest corner of Rockbrook Drive and Oak Bend Drive, as requested by Jason Rose, J.R. Rose Architecture, on behalf of the Colagiorgio Family Revocable Trust, the property owner.
Good evening, Commissioners. This is our second request to the mixed-use zoning district, although a very different type of development this time. So this is being developed as one lot, so it is condo units. However, each unit is a detached standalone unit. So this is similar to developments at Rockbrook Drive and Victoria Heights. Similar to those where it's actually a detached unit but on one lot. And again, it would have a property owners association that would maintain the property. In this case, there are three clusters of housing that take access off Oak Bend Drive, and then one parking lot for guest parking that also takes access off Oak Bend Drive and is where the cluster mailboxes are. The applicant's concept with this property was trying to preserve as much of the open space as possible, and so that's why they've done this kind of cluster concept. Originally, they also intended to take advantage of the property's natural topography and grade, kind of build going down the hillside. However, there were some drainage and floodplain concerns, and so they had to bring those up a little bit higher. So they're going with the modern style architecture of white brick and cedar wood and proposing a cedar fence around along Oak Bend Drive. The units will side to Oak Bend Drive. The units will access off an alley, so to speak. It's kind of a private drive, and then they'll front either to Rockbrook or Euchre. The ones fronting to Euchre have kind of an open space in front of them where there's an existing drainage swale that has a lot of trees. And so they're requesting to maintain that drainage swale and trees, but they'll either front to Rockbrook or to an open space within the development. They are planning to amenitize that open space by planting additional trees and also having trails for the residents to kind of go between the units. And access the mailboxes and so forth. There is a dumpster that is a community dumpster, and it's anticipated the Property Owners Association or Homeowners Association will provide a trash service, so it'll be collected at each residence and taken to the dumpster. So it does provide 27 residential units. It is zoned multifamily, and there are multifamily complexes to the north. To the south is undeveloped area, and then also the Rockbrook Place development, which is a senior age-restricted development, not immediately to the south, but a little farther to the south. And so staff is in support of this request as it does meet Big Move number 5 new neighborhood choice by providing a kind of unique housing opportunity and does preserve that open space. And staff is here for questions, and the applicant is here as well.
Okay. Do we have any questions? And does the applicant wish to speak before we open the public hearing?
Not to confuse this with the deal, I want to show this in a second. Good evening, council members. My name is Jason Rose. I'm an architect and developer. Done some work in Louisville before. I'm real excited about this property particularly because this is a very challenging and has proved to be a very challenging site. But in saying that, it's also a very naturally beautiful site, and it's what's attracted me to it. I have some photographs of the site. If you guys haven't had the opportunity to go look at it, I'll just kind of hand some of those out.
Okay.
Big trees all over the creek area. My concept, metaphorically, is to create these little clusters of homes within this forest. We went to extraordinary lengths to preserve many of the trees. The open spaces between the units contain most of the trees. We intend to preserve those. We're kind of orchestrating our units around this natural setting. And I think what it's going to allow us to do is have a product that's unique and attractive, unlike anything else that you can find out there. I think it's appropriate to use the site in this fashion because a lot of commercial developments, or what could go here, the site has been vacant for forever, and it's currently zoned light industrial, which is one of the most flexible commercial zoning categories out there. You know, you could get an application for many warehouses, some of those type of uses. So I really feel positive about the way we're approaching this site. Staff has been wonderful. You know, we kind of arm wrestled. I've been working on this for well over a year about how to approach this site and preserve this feeling of this development within the forest. And I think we've come to a really good place. These are going to be protected with deed restrictions for unit sizes. They are going to be for sale. Parking was a concern of staff's, and rightfully so. I had that concern as well, because when people move into their new homes, typically all their stuff goes in the garage and then they look for a place to put their cars. So if you'll notice, I don't know if you guys are looking at a site plan or you've had a chance to review it, we have a 20-foot driveway behind a 2-car garage that enables 2 additional cars to park for each unit. So that's 4 parking spaces devoted to each dwelling unit. In addition to that, we've created a guest parking space where you come in off the street and you can park cars and efficiently feed into the units. We expect the sales price of these, given the market, as long as we don't get any hiccups, to be $330 to $380-ish is kind of what we're proposing. And another issue is this is going to take some significant development costs to develop this site. If you look at the topography of this, I mean, it drops off a good probably 20 feet from front to back. So we're going to have a lot of dealing with a difficult terrain. We're going to have to pier these homes, which will secure that they're structurally sound. And we're going to transition with decks and retaining wall steps into these common areas, which will be maintained by an HOA. I did a similar project just north of here, 2 blocks on the other side of 3040, right before the recession hit. And it was called the Brownstones at Vista Ridge, and that's what I wanted to show here. We did 105 units at 2500 Rockbrook, and they were attached 3-story townhomes, a little bit different. But we came into council and we proposed that we were going to sell these, and we sold all of them. We survived the recession. The taxable value currently on that property is over $20 million, which is approaching and close to what Vista Ridge Mall is valued at, if you remove like the JCPenney owned stores and whatnot. What we made the case for at that time was that we felt like, because this was off of the main 3040 road with all the commercial, at that time the commercial was really emptying out. And we felt, in addition to other projects that you guys had allowed around that mall area, that this would really help shore up that commercial and reinforce it. And it really did. If you look now at 3040, it's pretty happening. It's got a good solid lease rate, and I think a lot of that had to do with the density that you guys allowed for the residential around there. I think this site is, this road, Oak Bend Drive, that this will primarily face, is just not a very heavily trafficked road, so it's not a very good site for a commercial use. And I think what we're proposing here will be really beneficial to the 3040 commercial district, and the city will also benefit with additional tax revenue and better filled spaces. But I'm most excited being an architect because the site, you just don't find sites like that. And we worked real hard to save these trees. Everybody faults developers for going in and tearing down trees. In a typical deal, you have to do that because your grades all change and you're putting in roads. And we actually saved a supermajority of these trees the way we have oriented this and intend to preserve them as well. So the corridor of view as you're driving along the street, you'll see these forests in between the units, and as you're going into these units down the private driveways, you look out to those trees as well. So I foresee this being just a very unique product offering and something that I'm kind of excited about taking on. It's going to be difficult, but I think it'll be worth it in terms of what we have as a product in the end. And with that, I'll open up for questions or.
I have a question with what I'm looking at right now. I see 4 entrances, 4 entrances off of Oak Bend Drive. Are there any other entrances or exits, any other places on Oak Bend? I'm not sure what I've seen.
Yeah, you're correct. There's 4 off of Oak Bend, and no, ma'am, there's no other entrances to the units themselves. Everything's taken off of Oak Bend, and Rockbrook is by far the most heavily trafficked road in that area. So we've kind of fronted the units to Rockbrook, and even though Oak Bend Drive is categorized as a C2U commercial collector, it just currently just doesn't get that much traffic. But you still cannot park on it, and you still, we felt like that was the best place to take access and deal with the topography.
So I'm looking at the preliminary water and sewer plan. It looks like there is a proposed drainage easement that is cutting across 3 units. Is that a mistake?
No, so that is an existing easement that's going to be relocated.
So the one that bends next to it is the proposed
Correct.
new location. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we're gonna pipe that easement particularly. It dumps 2 pipes dump out up there. We're gonna take that within pipes, and actually, it's not gonna remain an open trench.
Okay. Do we have any further questions or? Okay. Go
At the
ahead.
beginning, you said that the science being very challenging. So what are the challenges that you're talking about?
Primarily the topography. It's if you've been out there and you've looked at the site, on the east side, it's not so bad. It's fairly flat. But you go down to these 2 portions that we're trying to do on the west side, and I mean, it drops off at almost a 40-degree angle. It's substantial. And I think that's one of the reasons that site is set there so long. But as the market has strengthened and costs have risen, it's in play. They've marketed it for at least a decade that I'm aware of for sale, and it hasn't had any takers.
So the tree plan is fairly specific, or is it still kind of?
It's
So it is, the survey itself is very specific. The actual plan needs a little bit of tweaking, but for the most part, the trees that they're trying to preserve, they likely can preserve. The only place where they're gonna have to remove additional trees is where they're relocating that easement and putting in the pipe.
Okay.
So that'll have to be reflected in their engineering site plan, but.
And I would assume that the number of easements that are running through here also furthers, that's why also this site is very challenging, I assume as well. There's a lot.
It happened to work out okay because we had some sewer where we could utilize it. But yeah, that's another challenge to it. I'm a tree guy, believe it or not. I've planted thousands of trees.
The area that I live in, we just, in the last few years, many trees. The plan has redeveloped, and they're now large enough, not that I love the squirrels, but we finally have trees, so
Yeah.
I know the appreciation for it.
And customers do too. And customers, it can become a buying motivation if they're buying somewhere that has some grown trees versus a new development where they're looking at, the 6-foot tall tree that might take 20 years to become something. So it's in our interest as developers to do it. It's just usually with creating your drainage plans, it's very difficult. I'm fortunate to have a site where it lends itself to doing this.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, and do we need the applicant to sign in? No, okay. So with that, we need to open the public hearing for this item. If anyone wishes to speak on agenda item 3B, please come forward. Having no one come forward, we'll close the public hearing for this agenda item. I just wanted to make a comment that, to echo what Mary Ellen is saying. I'm so glad that the plan is to keep as many of the trees as possible. I do think that this helps support our big move on the neighborhood of choice, but also as, we have the green centerpiece. We have that focus in our big moves for our 2025 plan as well, and I think that fits within that as well. And so I too have an appreciation for the incorporating the trees in. I think it's going to be a very unique product in our city. I'm excited about it. Commissioners, do we have any further comments or a motion?
I make a motion to approve the zone change request from light industrial to mixed use on agenda item 3B.
Okay, motion by Jim.
Second.
Second by Mary Ellen. All those in favor signify aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And Commissioners, this item will go before the City Council for a second public hearing and final decision on October the 15th.
Okay. All right, and the final item on the agenda is adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
A motion by Karen.
Second.
Second by Mary Ellen. All those in favor? Aye. All right. We are adjourned. Thank you for coming.
You guys got a short one this week.